There's a moment in every empath's life when something extraordinary happens, something that psychologists have only recently begun to understand. The empath who has been drained, exploited, and pushed to their absolute limit suddenly experiences what Carl Jung called a psychic reversal, a complete inversion of their energy field that transforms them from the most vulnerable person in the room to the most untouchable. Jung observed this phenomenon in his most sensitive patients. After years of absorbing everyone else's darkness, managing everyone else's emotions, carrying burdens that were never theirs to carry, something inside them would snap, not break, snap into perfect alignment. And what emerged was a force so powerful, so psychologically sovereign, that it fundamentally altered every relationship dynamic they'd ever known. He called it the Supernova State, the moment when an empath's compressed, suppressed energy explodes outward in a burst of absolute clarity and unshakable boundaries. And today I'm going to show you what Jung discovered about this state, why it only happens to empaths, and how it becomes the most powerful psychological transformation a person can experience. Carl Jung spent decades studying what happened to empaths after they'd been pushed past their breaking point. His patients would come in completely depleted, years of one-sided relationships, decades of emotional labor that went unrecognized, a lifetime of giving until there was nothing left. They were shells of who they used to be. Then something would shift, not gradually. Suddenly, the patient who couldn't say no to anyone would walk in and casually mention they'd cut off half their family. The person who always put everyone first would talk about prioritizing themselves without a trace of guilt, would describe setting a boundary so firm it made their old self unrecognizable. Jung realized he was witnessing something profound, a psychological metamorphosis that only empaths were capable of. Because only empaths had the depth of feeling required to fuel what came next. Only empaths had absorbed enough darkness to understand exactly what needed to be expelled. Only empaths had given so much that when they finally stopped, the contrast was seismic. To understand the supernova state, you need to see what Jung saw happening in the empath's psyche. Before the transformation, these weren't people who had minor boundary issues. They were people whose entire identity was built on being there for others. Their self-worth was tied to how much they could give, how much they could endure, how much they could forgive. They'd been conditioned from childhood to believe that their value came from their usefulness, that love meant sacrifice, that caring meant carrying, that empathy meant absorbing everyone's pain and calling it compassion. So they gave and gave and gave, through relationships that destroyed them, through family dynamics that exploited them, through friendships that were completely one-sided. And here's what Jung found fascinating. The empath's nervous system was keeping score the entire time. Every manipulation, every time their boundaries were violated, every instance of their empathy being weaponized against them. Every moment they silenced their own needs to accommodate someone else's comfort. The psyche was recording it all, building pressure, storing energy, preparing for what would eventually have to happen. Jung called this the shadow accumulation phase. The empath was unconsciously collecting all the anger, all the resentment, all the rage they'd been trained to suppress. Not because they were bitter people, but because they'd been taught that those feelings made them bad, that setting boundaries was selfish, that protecting themselves was cruel. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It grows. It accumulates mass, it gains density, until one day something happens, a betrayal that's one too many, a demand that finally breaks through the conditioning, a realization that the people they've sacrificed everything for would never do the same. And that's when the supernova happens. Jung observed that the trigger was always different, but the pattern was identical. The empath would reach a point where continuing the old pattern became more painful than the fear of change, where staying small became more unbearable than the risk of being called cold, where sacrificing themselves one more time felt like a death they could no longer accept. The The supernova state doesn't announce itself gradually. It detonates. Suddenly, the empath who absorbed everyone's emotions stops absorbing anything. The person who always gave second chances runs out of chances to give. The one who always understood everyone's perspective stops caring about perspectives that don't include basic respect. What makes this state so powerful is its completeness. This isn't the empath trying to set boundaries and feeling guilty about it. This isn't them attempting to be firm and second-guessing themselves. This is a fundamental rewiring of their entire psychological operating system. They've integrated their shadow. They've reclaimed their suppressed energy. They've alchemized years of pain into an unbreakable foundation of self-respect. Jung found that empaths in the supernova state develop capabilities that seem almost superhuman to outside observers. They can read manipulation tactics before the manipulator finishes their sentence. They can see through performative apologies, like they're written in invisible ink only they can read. They know within seconds whether someone is genuine or playing games. This isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition that's been honed through years of being exploited. The empath has finally stopped overriding their intuition to give people chances they haven't earned. They're trusting the data their nervous system has been collecting all along. People who benefited from the old version of the empath typically respond to the supernova state with shock and accusations. You've changed. You're not the person I knew. You've become so cold. And they're right about one thing: the empath has changed because the person they knew was someone who was slowly dying to keep everyone else comfortable. Jung would tell you that these accusations are actually confirmation that you're doing exactly what you should be doing. Systems don't fight this hard to keep people who weren't serving a critical function. The intensity of their resistance reveals how much they were depending on your depletion to maintain their own comfort. But here's what makes the supernova state different from simple anger or reactive boundary setting. The empath isn't operating from a place of bitterness. They're operating from a place of clarity, so profound it looks like indifference to people who can't tell the difference. They don't hate the people who hurt them. They've simply stopped giving them access. They don't hold grudges. They've released emotional investment in outcomes involving people who've proven themselves unsafe. This state creates what Jung called psychological impermeability. The empath has built an internal fortress so strong that manipulation bounces off harmlessly. Guilt trips don't work anymore. Emotional blackmail gets ignored. Flying monkeys get blocked without a second thought. The empath has finally learned that protecting their peace isn't cruelty, it's sanity. What emerges from the supernova state is an empath who has integrated both their gift and their power. They haven't lost their sensitivity. They've learned to direct it consciously. They haven't abandoned their compassion. They've started requiring that it be reciprocated. They haven't closed their heart. They've learned to open it only for people who've earned that privilege through consistent respect and care. Jung observed that empaths who reach this state don't go back. They can't, because they've tasted what it feels like to prioritize their own well-being, and nothing will ever make them return to the prison of people-pleasing again. They've experienced the freedom of not managing everyone's emotional reality, and they'd rather be alone than go back to that exhaustion. If you're an empath who's entered the supernova state, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're watching people scramble to regain access to you and feeling nothing but mild curiosity about their desperation. You're seeing manipulation tactics that used to control you, and they're as ineffective as trying to guilt-trip a mountain into moving. You're not cold. You're cosmically clear. You're not damaged. You're finally whole. You're not closed off. You're selectively open to people who've proven they deserve access to your depths. Jung would tell you that what you're experiencing isn't the end of your empathy. It's the beginning of your sovereignty. You've integrated the shadow. You've reclaimed your power. You've become the version of yourself that can love deeply without losing yourself completely. This is the supernova state. This is the power only empaths have. because only empaths have felt deeply enough to know what's worth feeling. Only empaths have given enough to know what's worth giving. Only empaths have been depleted enough to know what's worth protecting. Welcome to the life where you get to choose who receives your energy. Welcome to the psychological wholeness that comes from finally, after all this time, putting yourself first. You've exploded outward. You've expanded beyond who you used to be, and you're never ever going back.